There we go. And we're both on the right side. Everything looks good. The internet is holding strong. Hello, welcome back to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I'm really excited for tonight's conversation. We were having some I was having some technical difficulties a moment ago. So if that continues, you'll know, like it just kind of is how it is sometimes. And this part is, there we go. All right, now everything should work. Now I swear everything should work. But I'm really excited for our conversation tonight. We're going to be talking about accepting kids as they are. And if you have questions related to our guest tonight or to the topic of the evening, feel free to put your question into the chat and we will make sure to address it while we are live here today. So with that being said, I am joined by Wayne Brown. Wayne, thank you so much for taking the time out this evening and joining us here.
Thanks so much. It's a thrill to be on here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Wayne. I'm going to jump into the interview. So Wayne is a remarkable individual whose life's journey has been marked by a profound commitment to helping others, both as a dedicated clinical social worker and a passionate advocate for individuals facing rare medical conditions. His story is one of unwavering dedication to promoting mental health, educational excellence, and fostering a stronger, more empathetic society. He has been tirelessly working since 2018 as a licensed clinical social worker, making a difference in the lives of countless individuals, and his practice specializes in serving high-risk patients facing a wide variety of issues, including addiction, gender-related challenges, positive parenting, and the critical issues of self-harm and suicidality. So his compassionate and empathetic approach has helped folks and families navigate these complex issues, providing much-needed support and healing. Beyond his clinical work, Wayne is also the founder of the, how do you say the community?
Acromegaly. Acromegaly community.
Okay, there you go. That's probably how I would have pronounced it, but you never know. Which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advocacy and support for patients with this rare pituitary disorder. His journey from dedicated educator to social worker and advocate serves as an inspiring example of the profound impact one person can have on the world, making it a better place for everyone. And with that, I do have some links for y'all. So if you are looking to connect with Wayne, I'm going to post website, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of that. Feel free to connect. And again, Wayne, I'm so excited for our conversation tonight. I appreciate you just taking the time out of your day to join. Oh, did we lose? Oh, we might have lost audio. Let's see. Can you, is it like a USB? I still can't hear anything. It was working just a second ago. Mm-mm. Is there like a mute button on the mic that you might have hit or anything? Oh, I heard something. Something happened. Whatever you just did, something happened.
Let's try. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, though?
Oh, I hear you.
Okay, all right. I was like, I can hear you now. But I didn't think you could hear me, so, all right.
Okay.
That's okay.
Oh, technology.
Listen, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's a little bit of a bummer.
As a social worker who survived the pandemic, we have gotten very used to dealing with all the wonderfulness and horribleness that technology has to offer.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to, right? It's the way of the world now. Just everything is online and all of that. I mean, online school. My kids did online school at the beginning of the pandemic, and they're still doing stuff online, But it's amazing how far it's come as far as just like, wow, that's actually, technology that you can do something with now instead of being, oh, is everyone, doing the right thing? It's very different. It's come a long, long way.
Yeah, we call it resilience in my business.
Excellent. Yeah. Yep. I like that. So you went from being speaking of school and now mental health. So you went from being a teacher, right, to being a social worker. So can you tell us a little more about that and just kind of what inspired you to make that change? How did you get to doing what you're doing now?
Well, it was not a direct path, as so many paths are never direct. I was an inner city school teacher for many years, social studies, everything from grades 7 through 11. Absolutely loved it. Some, without getting into the gritty details, there was a little bit of politics that got me to take a premature retirement from teaching, which is when I turned to running my charity full time. And that was absolutely fantastic. I founded Acromegaly Community because I was actually diagnosed with the disease back in 2004. And for those who are not familiar with the disease, which is most people, I'm sure, it's the same disease that Andre the Giant had, as well as many other celebrities. You can actually, we still have an up and running website. I've since retired from the organization, but our website is acromegalycommunity.com. And it was such a wonderful experience because when I was first diagnosed in 2004, there was no resources at all. And when I was looking things up online, all I could find was that it killed Andre the Giant at 50 years of age. And that was about it. There was one bulletin board, if that tells you how long ago it was, and it was monitored so people would post once every month or so, which is really challenging for those who are struggling with depression and loneliness because it is classified as a rare disease. So I focused on running the organization, which I'm absolutely super proud of. I stepped back from running the organization in 2013 because we had a family and it was just too much work. And that was when I returned to university because, running the charity was too much work, and got my master's in social work at the university where I now teach. So things have been pretty great. It's been an interesting trajectory. No one knows what their life path is until they look backwards.
And
Oh,
it's some other issues. So let me see. Let me see what's going on with that really quickly. Explain what weird quality thing. Let me see if I can just do a. Let me see if I can do a quick test. I wonder if it has to do with what my computer did right before this. Let me see if I can do a quick test. I wonder if it has to do with what my computer did right before this. It. Okay.
I hear you now.
Let me see if I can do a. Yeah, I can. All right, let me go into my settings really quick. 1 second.
Hmm?
That all looks correct. Okay.
This is my first Discord, so I'm learning as we go.
It's definitely always an adventure. My streams are always an adventure. I almost always have some sort of issue. I've been fortunate not to have had audio issues in a while though, so this is not ideal. All All right, let me try this again. I'm just going to see if that sounded at all different. Try this again. I'm just going to see if that sounded at all different. No, that sounds worse. Okay. Okay, 1 second. All right, let me see if that sounds. I'm hoping it's like something happened with the gain, but that sits up there, and so I don't know what would have happened necessarily. I'm hoping. See, it's still okay. All right. Oh, joy. Let me go into my sound settings and see if that's any better to mess with. Got the microphone. What if I just turn this down some? Is that any better?
I hear you not quite as well, but I hear you.
Not quite as well. Okay. Something is auto adjusting somewhere. Oh no, not this again.
I hear you.
I'm letting it run like a auto an auto thing. Yes, I heard the beep. I couldn't find the issue, it says. Well, this is what I get for going on vacation, y'all. I come back and stuff is all messed up. Oh no. Okay. That is. Was it something? Well, how did we fix that last time? Was it something in Google? It was like in Google Chrome or something last time. Okay, well, I mean, that's the only option there. I'm going to restart my sound program and see if that helps.
Okay.
All right, let's see if that is any better. All right, let's see if that is any better. It's still not ideal, but I'm going to go with it. You can hear me okay, right?
I can hear you.
All right. I think it's probably just on the stream side at this point, and for the sake of, continuing, we're just going to let the stream part deal with it. After one more adjustment. Okay. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. It is going to be what it is. As long as it can be understood, I think it's fine. Let me restart this part of it. And apologies, apologies, apologies. This does not normally happen. I did just get back from vacation, and I'm going to blame that for sure. Okay, let me get this stuff put back. So it's kind of how you never know how it's going to turn out, and I feel like that is so true because you can start off doing one thing and doing something totally different because of a chance encounter or in your case, some research that you were doing into something that was going on in your life, and I feel like that's common, and hopefully that resonates with people because what I do now is not something that I ever saw myself doing either. So it's for sure one of those just things that's how life goes sometimes a little bit.
Yep.
Is
That is very much how life goes.
Yeah, most definitely. Is there something that you really love about working in mental health? Like, what's your favorite thing about working in mental health? And on the other side, what's kind of what some of the biggest challenges that you've had since switching?
I My favorite part about working in mental health is really working with people who need the most help, who are coming in feeling like they're running rapidly out of options, and helping them, be with them, having the honor to share space with them as they gradually find a way to discover viability in their lives, to discover purpose in their lives, to really achieve more than they thought was possible. So many people who come into counseling at their lowest point don't see a path up. Some do, but many, many don't. And for me to come to them and be all, rainbows and sunshine is disingenuous. So it's meeting the client where they're at and slowly helping them to find their footing, and then relearning how to crawl and then to walk, and then having them, yeah, a month, 2 months, 3 months later, coming in and saying, Wayne, I'm really surprised, but I I feel better. Like, they don't trust the emotion of feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just actually had that recently with a relatively new client who I had been working with less than a month, but really has taken to the work in an unbelievable way. And I just love watching the client experience just vivaciousness. Like, there's a they feel a direction that they haven't felt in years. It makes me happy.
Yeah. I Many people who go to therapy because they're happy.
No one. I remember when I was in university and one of my classmates got angry with me because whatever the group task was, I had the audacity to say that as social workers, so many of us are meeting clients right after the worst day of their lives. And this classmate was like, "How dare you suppose that?" And many years past that class, I maintain that most people, when they're going into social workers' office for the first time, are coming in proximal to a really bad time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely got to be challenging. I mean, because first of all, you never know what we're gonna be supporting someone through, but then also just generally speaking, it's not always something
Well,
super happy.
is it challenging? Yes, but if it wasn't challenging, then it wouldn't be rewarding. Uh, meeting someone who is really struggling is it's just so rewarding to see someone figure out their why. Whatever why they're looking for, being able to be witness to their exploration and their discovery is so fantastic. And when dealing with adolescents who are coming to social workers are, generally speaking, in a really bad spot. They're coming to me largely because their parents or their guardians, their fosters have thrown their hands up. They are experiencing some sort of really challenging time in their lives, and they're not seeing a path forward. And with so many of my adolescents, the gender and sexuality issues go right hand in hand with the self-harm and suicidality issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so incredibly important to be able to share that space with them and help them to feel safe so that way they can talk about their pain and talk about their fears and talk about once they figure out what their wishes are. Because so many of my adolescents, when I ask them, what is it that you're hoping for from our time together? They just look at me blankly and shrug. And it's not, being a coy adolescent, they genuinely don't know what to hope for because it's been so long since they've held hope in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I do what I do, because I like them. I like being with them as they figure out what to hope for.
Yeah. Do you work mostly with kids or do you work with adults as well?
My current caseload ranges from age 5 to age late 60s.
Okay. Do you ask the
So
same
I
question of
skew,
like,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you ask the same question of adults as with kids? I just wonder, like, if when I first started meeting with my therapist, if she had said, what are you hoping from our time together? And I didn't have an answer at that time other than help.
Honestly, that's one of my baseline questions in a first meeting or first meetings. What is Why are we here? Why are we working together? What does better look like?
Hmm.
And then for some people, they don't know what better looks like, and that's okay too. Yeah,
Yeah.
not knowing. There's a great line in a song: "If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice." Not knowing what not knowing what better is still an answer to what do you hope better is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
So
point
it
as
gives
well.
me a starting point. It gives me a
Right.
starting point to get you to the point where you get to know yourself enough that what am I hoping for seems feasible. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if life has denied you the ability to feel that you have free will for years and years and years, and then someone says, make up your mind, what is it you're hoping for? That the You get into analysis paralysis. There's so many options that no options exist.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that most definitely. If I were to do this now, it definitely would be a conversation of like, I don't know.
Right. And to which I respond in a disarming and friendly way. Okay, cool. Let's figure it out together.
Yeah, that's perfect. Before I want to get into some things that you just kind of touched on, but before we get there, do you have an all-time favorite book or movie or something you wish more people would take the time to watch or read?
Uh, my favorite book currently is a book that I just finished reading. It's marketed as fiction, but it is really, I don't know the author's background, but there's really no way it's not based in a whole lot of insight.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Demon Copperhead, and it's it's written by Barbara Kingsolver.
Okay.
It's such a brilliant, brilliant book based in Appalachia, and this boy who really struggles with drugs and addiction and poverty and growing up in a society that has no time or patience for people who are undereducated and without access to funds.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a link to that book right here. So if anybody wants to go at it, I just put it on Goodreads. So you're welcome to get in there. But that sounds really interesting.
I do love that book. When I'm looking for relaxation, I tend towards more goofy, easy movies. Nothing too cerebral because I spend a lot of days being cerebral.
Yeah.
So like right now, my favorite TV show is Ted Lasso because it's so warm and you can't walk away from an episode really feeling badly. And then, my movies skew towards 80s pop culture silliness like Beetlejuice or the like.
Mm-hmm. So is one that
Uh,
I really, really love. I feel like I was actually just talking about this with for today because we were talking about the relationships in that show and just it's not all about the romantic relationships. It's about friendships and all these different, like, they're not friends necessarily, but they're peers, and like how does their relationship develop? And it's so just refreshing to watch a show like that. I absolutely love it.
Everything about that show is about building connections. It's about
Yeah.
reinforcing how we engage with each other. And one of the things that I love about it is that all of the relationships are flawed.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're all human. We are all by nature flawed. So why not add some reality to our programming and show people who really are trying to get along in the world and are not perfect, that the kiss is not on cue. Sometimes the kid has bad breath, or sometimes the person who we most need is someone who we desperately don't get along with. Not everything in life is going to be pitch perfect. And I think that's why I love the show because it's got a positive reinforcing message that says, you know what? Life is a struggle and sometimes you win.
Yeah. Yeah. Ted Lasso should be required viewing. I agree with that. We should have to watch it. It's funny because my little sister recommended that show to me and was like, "But have your tissues ready," which is not a warning for me because I've got tissues everywhere. But
Without a doubt, I have shed more than a couple of tears watching that show.
yes, it's such a good one. It really is. Okay, well, we are going to move into the topic tonight, and I'm really excited to talk about a lot of this. But I do just want to note, for those of you who are here in the chat, due to the technical difficulties I was having earlier, apparently some things still aren't working. But I think the bot should be working by now. Hopefully it's working by now. And if it's not, then we'll just do without it tonight. But I think it should be going. Should be good. So retry everything that y'all have tried so far. If you would like to. It might be working. We'll see. All right, so we're talking tonight about kids and just accepting how kids are. So what does it mean to truly accept children as they are, and why is that important for their development and their well-being in general?
I think the most important thing that any person, whether you're a parent, a caretaker, a teacher, teacher's assistant, a guardian, foster, whatever it is, to accept a child on their word, at least initially, to be present, to be available, and more important than anything else, to genuinely be an interested listener.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Especially when children are young, they have a million stories to tell us. And many of them, let's be honest, don't make the most sense. Kids can tell us stories that are the most important thing in the world to them. And to our adult ear, who's worried about paying the mortgage, who's worried about what the boss said to us at the end of the workday, who's thinking about the weather, who's thinking about the election, who's thinking about, who's thinking about, who's thinking about, the kids' noise is just that.
Yeah.
And while it's easy to dismiss it as this isn't important to me, this isn't relevant to my immediate needs, it is the most important thing in that child's world.
Mm-hmm.
And for the 2 minutes that it takes to give that child undivided attention, to tell them, to have them tell you about their day, is worth the world to them. Dinner is not going to burn in 2 minutes. The email to your boss is not going to go unsent if you give your child 2 minutes. And I mean, you sit with the child, you make true eye contact. That's important. Imagine having a conversation with a friend and they're staring at their phone the entire time. How seen and validated do you feel? The kid the kids rely on nonverbal communication.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're talking to us and we're staring at our phone or we're staring at the TV or we're off in Never Neverland, they're talking and at some point they're going to phase out because they know that we're not listening. And if we teach them that they're not important enough to listen to, that is the message that the child is going to take away. The youngest people need the most attention. They need the most reaffirmation that their thoughts and opinions matter. Does it make sense? Probably not. They can go on for 5 minutes about, a cat and a dog and, a pony. Who cares? Well, they do. So give them the time because it's a break from work and it's a break from whatever you're doing, and it makes them feel like their thoughts matter.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as a quick secret to parents of young children, the only way that your kids are going to talk to you about the hard things when they're teenagers is if you're listening to the unimportant things that they consider important when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
Patterns establish themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can seem really hard to dedicate that attention to them because if you're like me and you're working from home and your kids are home and those doors close, but do they to a 10-year-old? No, not really. It can seem really difficult to say, like, okay, I'm going to give you the time right now because eventually, if I've given you 2 minutes and then 5 minutes later, 2 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, 2 minutes. So, do you have any recommendations for like parents in kind of that situation of, I've got to get
That's fair.
how do I establish that boundary? I've got it with my kids, but maybe with a kid who's a little bit younger or, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point there. So sometimes I work from home, sometimes I work from the office. When I work from the office, obviously far less distractions. When I'm working from home, my kids know if the door is closed, it must stay closed. And the trade off is that when the door opens, they get my undivided attention.
Mm.
And that's the trade off we have. Now, the reason they know for me that the door stays closed is if dad's at work, there's someone on the screen, and that person works with me because I can keep their privacy.
Yeah.
So they understand that when dad's working, just popping in isn't okay. That being said, they also know when dad can fudge the lines a little. So earlier tonight before you and I met, I had a meeting with the university getting ready for the semester. So I was telling them, if you want to pop in, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to get upset about that. It's setting reasonable boundaries.
Yeah.
Guys, from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m., I can't be interrupted. After 3 p.m., we're going to go do X.
Yeah.
One of the things that we work with our clients of all ages is what we refer to as SMART goals. And that refers to specific, manageable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. So when I'm working with a client, when I'm working with a client's adult, when I'm working with my own kids, I try to give directions that include all of those. Because if you're setting goals that do not include those five things, they're they're too ephemeral to really
Hmm.
mean anything. Going back to your first question of, what happens when I ask a client what better is, and they're like, I don't know. What we want to do is get them to a point where they can know themselves enough to answer that.
Hmm.
So, like, when I'm as we near, because believe it or not, December is not that far away. We're 5 months from there. As people start to prepare for New Year's resolutions, one of the things that I frequently will talk to or joke with clients about is how the busiest week of the year at the gym is January 1st to 7th. And usually by January 20th, it's back to normal.
Hmm.
Why is that? Because we set these goals to lose weight, but we don't put any meat on the bones. So I want to lose weight. Okay, cool. How much do you want to lose? I don't know. Okay, well, what plans do you have to lose weight? I'm gonna eat less. Okay, what are you gonna eat less of? Whatever. The more you can specify how you're gonna control your diet, how often you're gonna go to the gym. And honestly, what does working out look like? If you haven't worked out in 20 years, going to the gym and working out for 2 hours is a guarantee that you're not
Hmm.
going to be back for another 20 years.
Right.
Start by walking around the block. Yeah, so when we're working with our kids and we say to them, hey, I need some time, I'll be with you later, the kid's gonna respond, if not verbally, then they're gonna think, well, how many minutes is in a later?
Hmm.
And what seems like 3 minutes to us might be 25 minutes in real time and might feel like 15 hours to them.
Yeah.
So, time is relative, and we really have to collaborate better with our kids in order to further that relationship. It's the most important thing we can do with our day.
Yeah. Are there any common misconceptions about accepting children as they are, and how do you work to overcome those?
Think the most there are a few common misconceptions. Uh, I hear a lot, kids are resilient, they'll grow out of it. And kids are resilient, And I say that with an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Children who are supported are resilient.
Mm.
Children who, when they feel sad, when they feel upset, they have someone to process that feeling with, can develop resilience. But resilience is a muscle, and resilience must be tended to. Children must learn that, you know what? Sometimes it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the end of the universe when shit happens unless you stop.
Yeah.
The world doesn't stop unless you do. So I like to work with the adults in our kids' lives on helping the kids to learn to be resilient, helping the kids learn to be self sufficient. And part of being self sufficient is giving them a reason to believe in themselves.
Mm.
And part of that is, getting back to kids who tell stories, or, kids will come up and maybe they drew a picture for you. Simply saying, "Oh, that's beautiful," that it doesn't hold value to the child.
Mm-hmm.
If a child shares with you a piece of their artistry, that's a piece of them. So when you say, "I love this picture," what is it that you like about it?
Mm-hmm.
I really like how the kitten's whiskers look so real. Or I really like how the raindrops dribble off of the umbrella. It seems your choice of colors is fascinating. And the kid's going to listen and take your feedback genuinely.
Yeah.
Your feedback is important. Feel better knowing that you're invested in it.
Mm-hmm. I saw something. I don't remember if it was today or yesterday, but I saw something about kids, and I have a 10-year-old and I have a 17-year-old, and it was something to the effect of kids believe everything their parents say until they become a teenager, and then they're not going to believe you again until they're like 25. Kind of looking at it now with a teenager and with someone who's on the younger side as well. Yeah, I my 10-year-old, absolutely, my word is correct. So everything
Well,
right now
my
is like
10-year-old hasn't gotten that memo.
it's circulating. It's circulating. But it's definitely one of those things of like the influence that I have over him now at this age is much higher than the influence that I have on my 17-year-old right now. But that doesn't
Yep.
mean I don't, compliment my son. He's doing something called art fight, which I don't fully understand, but he's very excited about it, and he brings stuff to me and shows it to me, and I'm like, I love this. That's great. That's when we talk through whatever piece it is that he's working on and everything. So I feel like sometimes it's easier to give the attention to younger kids because they are going to believe everything you say.
Right.
Than maybe teenagers, but when a teenager like comes to you with something like that, still as a teenager, to me that's extra special because they're not coming to you every hour with a 2-minute conversation. They're coming to you once a day with a 2-minute conversation.
Hmm. And honestly, like I said earlier, the only way you get invited into the big conversations is to be present for the little ones when they're little.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the little conversations aren't important except that they make you a safe resource
Mm-hmm.
for the bigger conversation. And for parents who have, younger kids, middle school kids, if you want to know if your kids are friends with good kids, if you want to know if your kids are being exposed to drugs, if they're being exposed or vulnerable to the bullies in the school, to joining with the bullies in the school, not even being bullied by them. The conversations when they're 2, 3, 4 are where you get access to the middle school information.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my my 11-year-old the other day feels like the other day, last school year, one of their best friends was one of the kids who was hanging out in the bathroom during the school day. And any parent of a middle schooler knows that nothing is positively going on in the middle school bathroom. Now, my child came to me, they're like, my friend is hanging out in the middle school bathroom and they're not inviting me. I feel excluded. And that was a genuine emotion on their part. And my first thought is, ooh, but that's completely invalidating to what the child is coming to me for.
Mm-hmm.
So, first, I do respond with relief. And then I explain to my child, look, the reason I don't want you hanging out in the bathroom is because, first of all, let me ask you, kiddo, what is the only part of the school that doesn't have cameras in it? And my kid was like, well, the bathroom. So, do you think that the kids who are hanging out in the bathroom are hanging out because it smells great in there? And humor always helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the kid, you know, was old enough to kind of roll their eyes. No, Dad. Okay, so is there a chance that they're up to not such great things in the bathroom? And it was that light bulb moment. I didn't tell them don't go in the bathroom. Bad things are going in there. Avoid it, avoid it, avoid it. Your friends are garbage. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were once teenagers and tell uh, an early adolescent or an adolescent that their friend is no good, you can't hang out with them, and you just guaranteed they're BFFs.
Mm-hmm.
You just made them the most interesting person in the world. But if you can help the child identify on their own for their own edification, maybe I shouldn't be hanging out in the bathroom, not because mom or dad or grandma would be upset, but because for my kid, I talk to them about you want to be high honor roll. The first time you get suspended, high honor roll is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And for the adults with kiddos in grade school, once a child has been suspended from school once, their chance of being suspended a second time goes up astronomically higher. And as the suspensions accrue,
Uh-oh. Are you still? I think you might have frozen, although I don't know if it's me who has frozen. Oh, there we go.
all right, so where'd you lose me?
You're just getting to them
Oh,
making the choice instead of you dictating the choice.
so uh, when you're helping kids to make the choice, you're helping them to formulate their own reasons why not to do something, why
Yeah.
it is important to make a yes choice or a no choice. And for my kiddo at the time, one of their big incentives was they were really working to achieve high honor roll. That was a goal that was extremely important to them. And I explained to them, you know what? The second you get suspended, because you could be in the bathroom and not doing anything, and your friends get caught, and you're getting suspended too, kiddo.
Right.
And as soon as you get suspended, high honor roll goes away. The respect that you get from your teachers goes away. And once a child is suspended for the first time, the odds of them being suspended for a second time go up astronomically.
Mm-hmm.
And the more a child has negative run-ins in the school with suspensions or with in-school suspensions, the correlation between that and being involved with the judicial system goes up rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're planting seeds when they're young to get the trees when they're older.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an important thing that can get really easily just kind of brushed to the side a little bit. So your work, you dealt with. Oh, are we frozen again? Let's see. There we go. That's okay. It's just a technical. It's Monday. It's Monday. Mondays.
Your
It's
internet
fine.
is having a case of the Mondays.
Yes, yes. Your work, you've dealt with a variety of issues, including addiction and self-harm and gender-related challenges. How do those experiences inform your perspective on accepting and supporting children through their unique struggles? Oh, I think we're frozen again.
We're back.
Everything looks okay on my end. Do you need to restart your computer thing? I can't tell
No,
if
I
it's,
haven't had any. I haven't gone from from online yet.
okay.
I've had no flickering.
There's no telling what it is. But that's okay. So you've done a lot of challenging things across your career. How have your personal experiences helped inform your perspective on accepting and supporting kids through their unique struggles?
When I was 8 days old, my mother was told that I was born without an active thyroid. And at the time, no infant had ever been put on Synthroid as an infant. Um, they started me on it because the doctor was like, we could try this or your kid can die.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, my
Uh-oh.
you there?
Yep, I'm here. I'm here now. So you said that there had not been anyone put on that as an infant.
Yeah, I was put on this medication as an infant. It was never prescribed to any infant before me. Um, as time went on, I think by the time I was 2 or 3, one of the pediatricians at our local children's hospital told my parents that if I were to survive, that I would be extraordinarily small and extremely mentally delayed.
Wow.
Um, I'm over 6 foot tall, and I think I'm doing okay intellectually.
Seems
So,
good.
yeah, so I guess my entire life has been random challenges, and I was always taught no matter what the experts say, you keep going because the experts only know what they currently know.
Yeah.
And when I was born, there was nothing written about infants on synthetic thyroid. So yeah, they weren't giving my mother incorrect information. They were giving my mother current information.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm very much of the mindset that if this is something you want to do, then let's do it. Let's figure out a path forward. And that definitely informs how I treat my students, how I treat my clients, how I treat my clients' families. There's no such thing as too long of odds to try. You just gotta, my recommendation is you gotta know what it is that you're hoping for in the end. Now, is the final result going to be what you hoped for in the beginning? Absolutely not.
Right.
I am very much a subscriber to the John Lennon lyric, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans."
Yeah.
So sometimes we plan for A and we get B, and B is a million times better than we would hope. Sometimes we plan for A and we end up way over in number 17. And maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but usually it's just different. And wherever we are, that's where we're at, and we go from there. And helping people figure out their path is, I've always had people growing up who pushed me beyond what I thought I could do. And honestly, that is the absolute definition of privilege. Not everyone gets that in life.
Hmm.
So for the people who give me the honor of sharing space with them, I try to be that person for them.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it takes a carrot, sometimes it takes a stick. Usually it takes both.
Hmm.
But, it's all done with love.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of reframing that you did about current medical information, especially because you're right, it's not, they don't have the answers, they don't have the correct information. They have information that maybe you don't have at this time, but there's also information they don't have at this time either. And that's taking that frame of mind into mental health as well, I think is something that I haven't necessarily put a lot of thought into. Um, I mean, it's the same with like all the DSM stuff. They could change something tomorrow that changes your whole understanding of something, but that doesn't mean that anything with you changed. You're still operating on the information that you have, and you have to move forward with what's current and what's known at the moment.
The DSM, right now we're on the DSM-5 TR. Without getting into that level of politics, updates at glacial pace.
Yes.
And uh, they they're doing their best. The ICD-10, which is generally used by every country that's not the United States. Actually, they're on the ICD-11 now. Uh, that's generally used by every country other than the United States.
Of course.
Um, it's the information. The DSM, honestly, for my purpose, only serves for insurance billing.
Yeah.
If you have a clinician who relies on the DSM for the best information, I'm not saying there are better clinicians out there, but
But maybe there are.
eh, eh, as a therapist, I frequently get people who will call me in for a session and will say, "Well, what modality of therapy do you use?" And I always respond, "Well, I use all of them."
Hmm.
And that, "Well, what about DBT or CBT or EMDR or this or this or this?" Because they see it on one Psychology Today profile and they're like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, letters." And I I like to reframe that when I'm working with the individuals, and I just say to them, "Would you go to a restaurant where the kitchen used only one spice?" Yes, there's value in DBT. No, DBT does not have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yes, there's value in EMDR. Not every client who comes through my door is safe to do trauma therapy.
Yeah.
So as the therapist, I'm going to give you my best clinical advice and I'm going to give you my best clinical guidance. And if you like the way I engage with you, then awesome. I will work with you until you decide we're done. And if you think I'm no good, cool. I wish you well and I will help you find your next therapist because everyone deserves positive mental health.
Yeah.
And I'm not everybody's ideal therapist, and that's okay. The I cannot remember the last time I was accepting new clients on my caseload. So if someone doesn't want to work with me, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I do things like this. I engage with as many paths of sharing information because I love to teach. I love to
Hmm.
help people find their way to a better feeling towards themselves, to
Yeah.
looking in the mirror in the morning and at the very least not hating who is looking back at them. And then from there, we can work on liking the person looking back at them. And then from there, we can work on loving the person who looks back at them. And every one of those is a step.
Yeah.
And we got to be patient. You know, you got to learn how to crawl before you can walk.
Wanting to be a teacher? Did you know, like, at what point did you know I want to be a teacher, or, when did you realize that?
I remember very early on really loving to help others.
Mm.
One of my first teaching positions, the teacher who pushed into the classroom, the special ed teacher who pushed in the classroom, always said that I was a social worker in a teacher's position. Um, the funny part is that when I was in grade school, I was the worst student. I absolutely hated school. I was bored by it. I had no interest what the teachers were talking about, and I was so many teachers' worst nightmare. So many of the teacher comments, if you could find my report cards, were probably Wayne can do better than this. And in there is kind of its own lesson because just because a child doesn't get straight A's in school doesn't mean you give up on them. It
Yeah.
means that they're they haven't discovered their why yet. And when I went to college my first couple of times, I had bumpy entries. Until you figure out your why, school is just passing tests and regurgitating information.
Yeah.
And I had no interest in just being compliant. There wasn't a box to fit me. And if you ask my boss at the university if I fit inside a box today, she'll probably say no. And that's okay. My goal is not to fit inside a box. My goal is to train up and coming social workers to be the best advocates for their clients.
Yeah.
So I don't care about boxes. And when I'm working with my kiddos, I don't bind them into boxes. I help them figure out where they fit and help them figure out what box is theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you approach conversations with parents about embracing their children's identities, especially when it comes to issues like gender pronouns and gender identity?
So, in dealing with adolescents and kids, adults, I had to learn the hard way over many failed adult interactions on ways to be more solution focused with uh, with the adults of the kids I work with. And it does take time and it does take patience. I am extraordinarily fortunate that I live in New York State. And in living in New York State, we don't generally have a whole lot of pushback on gender pronouns and exploration of gender dysphoria. Um, there are many parents and guardians who still don't understand, and I've learned how to meet them where they're at and walk with them slowly until they figure out a path that, again, they can accept their child as being unsure. One of the things
Mm.
that I will talk to a parent, especially a parent who has just had the bomb dropped on them. Mom, Dad, I think I was born the wrong gender. That's a big reveal for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I work with my kids on is, hey, call back to Ted Lasso. Uh, you've known for years that you're this other gender.
Mm-hmm.
Your parent has had this information for 15 seconds. Give them a moment to take it in. Um, I think that when parents can be talked to and given space and given the understanding that they can work towards acceptance. Too many times it happens where kid will make one approach, the parent responds strongly, the kid says this will never work out. So both sides, for me, I want both sides to communicate. I want the child to explain this and this and this and this is important for me to understand, for you to understand. And for the parent or the adult, it's this and this and this and this is why I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And the parent may not have words describe what they're feeling. Uh, they just know that they're scared for their child. Um, I'm a Gen Xer. It is still astounding to me, even as a therapist, watching this generation come up and genuinely being open and interested in kids' exploration of their gender and sexuality without judgment, without criticism. And it's really facilitated, I'll tell you, it's facilitated some of the older clients who I've worked with to begin to say, you know what? I grew up during Reagan, but I don't feel like I'm living the life that I wanted to all those years. And so, I have some adults who maybe they're not coming out of the closet, but they're feeling around for the light switch.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy helping them figure that out too. Because gender and sexuality really is more fluid than my generation grew up believing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I get to be part of the process. One book that I do want to recommend for parents who do struggle in engaging with their kids, it's called No Drama Discipline, and it's by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. It's a quick read. It's You can really probably whip through it in less than a week. And what I like about it is it gives very specific bite-sized items that parents can do, that adults can do to more effectively engage with their children, to more effectively effectuate change. Because I'm sorry, I've heard every reason in the world why spanking works, and I will put up a library of published information against, well, my parents did it to me and I'm just fine.
No.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're super not fine. Otherwise, you wouldn't become so defensive and angry at someone challenging what your parents did because I don't know about you. My parents were not perfect people.
No parents
Uh,
are.
I'm a parent, and my goal is to raise my kids confidently enough that they can be better parents than me to my grandchildren. Why?
Mhm.
Because they're my grandchildren, and you better raise them well. I'm doing the best I can. You will hopefully have more information to be a better parent than me,
Yeah.
and go you. Yeah, so I do. One of the things that I love about the no drama discipline is it has given many of the parents of my clients a path past spanking. And for those parents, it's so funny to me. They will come back after a few weeks because the first week they're always like, "Well, this is crap. I don't. There's no way it's gonna work. My kid needs corporal punishment to listen."
Mm,
And usually a week after it stops as a pattern, the parent comes back and they're like, "Better," but they're still pushing back. Well, kids are supposed to push back. You
that's a
did.
kid's whole job.
Right. Yeah, when you were a kid, did you accept everything your parents said as wholly correct? Because if
Yeah.
you did, you're the only kid ever. Uh, as 2, 3, 4 weeks go by, the parents or guardians will come back and be like, "Wow, you know, my kid and I have a way better relationship now." Right. And I'll say, right, kind of, I knew that was going to happen.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Well, how did you know?" Here's a library of
Yeah.
evidence that tells you why I knew.
Mhm.
Yeah, the data is out there and it is irrefutable. Spanking does not work.
Yeah.
Even, and I love the even ifs because I love parent even ifs. Because when I get a parent even if, that means they're actually hearing what we're talking about. So even ifs don't scare me. Even if you're just patting your kid on the bottom,
Mhm.
the child's brain does not differentiate between a pat on the bottom and cutting a switch.
Mm.
Now, cutting a switch is far more severe and can have longer implications, but the brain does not differentiate in the threat.
Yeah.
The threat is there of bodily harm.
Mhm.
And a kid who just gets a pat on the bottom who's never gotten a switch doesn't know what a switch is to compare it to a pat on.
Yeah.
So having a conversation with your child. When when my kids were toddlers going into preschool, they tantrum just like every other kid in the known universe. And all I would do is while they were sitting on the ground, I'd sit on the ground with them and I'd wait and wait and wait. And then they would start to settle down.
Uh-oh. Well, I think we're frozen again. There we go. You sit on the floor with your kids. We'll get there. All
All
right.
right.
Are you back?
So what I was saying was,
Man.
I'm back.
Okay. All right. Good.
So I'll sit on the ground with the kiddo and listen to them cry, listen to them cry. As they settle down, I will very politely say, "Are you ready to talk yet?" And that frequently will rage them right back up. And then I will sit and wait and wait and wait very patiently. Eventually, they'll calm down. And usually, their calming down does concur with them running out of air from screaming so much. And I will say, "Are you ready to talk yet?" And there might be a second or a third round of the ramping up. All in all, it might be 15 or 20 minutes, but the kid will pick up on the pattern. And eventually I'll say, "Are you ready to talk yet?" And they'll say, "Yes." And I'll ask them, "Can you tell me what you were so upset about?" And they'll give whatever answer they have. And I will listen to them intently. We'll talk about it and we'll discuss what would have been a better way to handle it. And I'll ask them first, what would have been a better way to handle it? And
Mhm.
usually they can answer or two. And so it, eventually we will talk about it and we will figure out what is a better way to handle it. And they will have identified it as something important to them.
Yeah.
Way more learning goes on in that. Does it take more time? Does it take more work and patience? Yeah. And it's going to be more successful. You'll
Mhm.
have long run less tantrums because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Tantrums that get fed with a treat or a prize or getting the cereal they wanted or the sugary treat they wanted, you're feeding the tantrum. You're teaching the child, if I scream long enough, I get a prize. It's a positive reward.
Mhm.
Teaching the child that I will hang out with you until you're done screaming and then we're going to talk about it helps them learn that number one, their opinion is valuable. And number two, there's no prize at the end of this scream fest.
Yeah. You might as well get to the talking part faster because that's where you're going to wind up anyway.
Right. And we can have more fun once we get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite tricks for helping parents to manage the tantrums is let's be with the kid and help them figure out a path forward
Yeah.
rather than giving them a prize for having a tantrum.
Yeah. You brought up the kind of generational difference that's happening now. And I'm an older millennial. So I'm kind of right on that line. But it's been really interesting to me. My oldest, my 17-year-old is trans. And some of the conversations I've had with my coworkers have been really eye opening for me because, that was I had a lot of understanding to do whenever everything first came out, and it was just one of those things. Like, I had learning to do, he had communication to do, I had communication back to do. There was a lot of growth. I'm sure some missteps, but it's been interesting because I've worked at the same place for so long that they knew him before, and now they know him after. And I sat down with one of my what I consider a fairly conservative coworker. I'm in Texas, so not the best opposite of New York. But we were on a business trip together, and we went to dinner and sat down, and he was asking about the kids and everything. I was like, well, it's he and him now. And he was just like, okay, cool. I mean, how did that happen and everything? And we had a whole conversation about it. It was beautiful. And it was just one of those things. And at one point in the conversation, he goes, we didn't get a chance to explore any of that when we were kids. And I was like, holy shit. Ben, what is that? Like, it was so insightful because we didn't. It wasn't an option to explore any of that. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people are just saying, "Oh, all the kids these days are doing it," and it's like all the kids are supported to do it. So it's such a difference. It's really refreshing in a way. Also, of course, being in Texas, there are plenty of things that are not refreshing about everything. It's really refreshing in a way to see that kids now are more able to even consider, does this work for me? It's totally different.
The younger generation doesn't care about gender and sexuality. They just don't.
Yep.
They're willing to meet a person where they're at, and I absolutely love that for them. Now, this is not a blanket statement. Not every 14, 15, 16-year-old is this enlightened, open individual willing to be.
I'll get it. There we go.
Yeah, not every adolescent is this person who's willing to meet everyone where they're at. Just as not every Gen Xer is closed off and saying, "I don't believe in those pronouns."
Yeah. Yep.
I will be very impressed if you can tape together an episode from all.
It's I don't know what's going on tonight. Like everything, all my stats and everything on my computer, everything looks perfect. I don't know what is going on. It's a Monday. It's just a Monday. It's all right.
So yeah, like I was saying, not everyone of my generation, not everyone of the older generation is going to be unpliable, just as not everyone of the younger generation is going to be open. But I think the kids that are coming up are leading in a way that I find very reassuring.
Yeah. It's really impressive. It's really fantastic. I'm not saying there aren't problems anymore, because by God, there are. But it's getting better, and I'm excited for that. It's better than when I was a kid.
I wake up and the work I do, the people I work with, I do feel like there are rays of hope, and maybe I am biased by my worldview, but I feel like there is a path forward, and that the kids that I work with they're growing into stronger people because they're having the space to grow and the space to figure out who they are and not, again, not be put in a box.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's a parent who comes to you and they're just like, I don't know how to support my kid who's struggling with something like self esteem or gender identity or some other challenge, what are some practical strategies that are pretty universal no matter what your kid is going through? What are some practical strategies that parents can use to support their kids?
Um, Is going to be rehashing a lot of the things we've talked about tonight. It's good listening, it's genuine engagement, it's
Mm,
being with your child. There is so much value in going out for a cup of coffee or an ice cream cone or uh, in going and hanging out at the mall or what have you. And don't don't just say, "Hey, I'm here for you. Now spill it." Your child is going to come to you. Your child is going to share with you as you earn their trust.
mm,
And the more you push them, come on, trust me now, trust me now. Do you trust me now? Come on, trust me now. I try to I try and parallel it for parents.
mm,
Um, if you've ever had a boss who was a little bit overbearing and randomly threatening, and one day could be really nice and one day could be really mean, and then they come to you and say, "Hey, I see where you're struggling a little with work today. Why don't you come in the office and talk to me about it?" How much are you actually going to open up to that boss?
yeah.
Probably not that much. So if your child is feeling that they are a step down, if your child is feeling that they are unequal, and I'm not saying that children and parents should be peers, I'm saying that children who are afraid of their parents do not share with their parents.
Yeah.
And there can be so much more growth from a positive, meaningful connection than there ever will be in being a totalitarian bully.
Hmm.
So be with your kids and have a conversation with them. Just say, hey, like I said, let's go out for ice cream. Let's go out for a cup of coffee. Let's grab some lunch today. Uh, it's summer break. Do you want to go out and grab breakfast after you wake up, especially the adolescents?
Yeah.
Maybe brunch. Um, don't expect that the first act of kindness from you is going to get them to puke up all the information in the world.
Yeah.
You're playing for the long game. You're even if they're no longer little ones, if they're 14, 15, 16, you're still playing for the long game. You're being with them, you're being present with them. And you'll know that they're starting to crack when they share something with you that they know will upset you a little. And they are going to watch every micro expression you give.
Mm,
And if you look like you're trying to hold back anger or sadness or resentment or fear or over anything, they're going to shut right down.
yeah.
It is absolutely the most vital that you put on your greatest poker face and respond with, "Wow, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. That had to be really hard to share. Thank you for letting me be a part of it." And that is where meaningful conversation starts to take place.
Hmm.
If you've been fighting for 14, 15, 16 years, buying them a single cup of coffee isn't going to get you the keys to the castle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to build a relationship. And one of the things that I remind my parents of, the ones who are like, well, they're my kid, they'll do what I tell them to. Okay, cool. You can think that, but do you want to meet your grandkids?
Yeah.
Because if their only experience with you is as being one of their primary childhood bullies, you're probably never going to meet your grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to protect their child from their childhood bully,
Yeah.
as they should.
Right.
So, if you want to have that connection with your child, if you want to rebuild, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I was listening to this podcast and this weird guy from New York was saying all this crazy hippie crap. He did bring up some thoughts, and I don't think I was always the best listener. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then shut the hell up. And they might look at you strangely, and that's it. But they didn't fight back.
Yeah.
And sometimes them not fighting back has to be a victory.
Mm-hmm.
Victories aren't always going to present themselves clearly. And that's okay too. It's letting them come to us at a pace that they're willing to come to us.
Yeah. Some kids are easier. Some kids are, so I've got my oldest who is not an over communicator. I have my youngest who is the most over communicator that could over communicate. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
like vastly different kinds of humans. They're both very good kids. They both, they've got all these things in common with each other, but they just communicate really differently. And so you got to kind of be aware of that too. I feel like of if my 17-year-old shares something with me that seems minor to me, that's a big deal because he's sharing it at all. If my 10-year-old shares something with me, it's still a big deal, but he's sharing. Okay, this is what he does. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to also kind of be aware of that because what seems like to you might be really really minor to your kid could be massively huge, and just kind of keep an eye
Yeah,
out
no,
for that.
you're absolutely right. And so much of what's important with the over communicator, the importance of it is communicated in their nonverbal communication.
Mm,
What's their facial expression? What are their shoulders scrunched up and
yeah,
tight? Are they fidgeting with their hands? Are they dancing a lot? These are signs that they're nervous, that they're
yeah,
holding something in. Um, if I've got an adolescent client in my office and sitting in the chair, I have so many different fidget toys in my office, as I'm sure you could imagine.
hmm,
And my clients who I have this beautiful thing of kinetic sand. And so many of my teens are drawn to the kinetic sand. And I appreciate that because the kinetic sand tells me how nervous they are by how much their hands shake when they're playing with it.
oh, I like that.
So they don't need to tell me I'm feeling uncomfortable with this
Hmm.
conversation because their body is telling me. Uh,
Yeah,
the the book Body Keeps the Score is this mainstream book on trauma. Um, and I love the book. Why it's mainstream, I have no idea, but it is pretty mainstream. And the body will the body will tell information that the mouth will not.
Yeah.
So, if your kid's face looks more nervous than it typically does, believe them.
Yeah.
Uh, If your kid looks like they're, dancing around, don't yell at them to stand still. Know that that is their body telling you they're having a feeling right now.
Hmm.
Um, if your child is complaining of a stomach ache out of nowhere and they have a big test coming up, or they're expecting to do, I don't know, ask someone out to prom, or they're expecting to do this other big thing, or maybe they've got a big thing to talk to you about. That's a somatic pain. And that stomach pain is actually just anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not anything to medicate, it's something to talk about.
Hmm. So
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just going to say, just yesterday, my 10-year-old came home a day early for various reasons from his dad's. And I got home, and he and my older one were playing Fortnite together. And then, one of them was at the dining room table, one of them was back in his room. And my 10-year-old was getting really upset. And so I had him pause, and we sat and talked about why he's getting really upset and what he could do differently and all this stuff. And then he went back to playing the game. He got really upset again. And he was like, I'm done. I'm done. That's all. Can we sit down? Can we sit down and cuddle? I was like, yep, let's sit down. So we sat down and cuddled. And then it was time for me to cook dinner. So I cooked dinner. I had frozen pizza. Okay, look. It was dinner night. I did tonight. That's not it.
We did Pizza Friday. It's okay. I don't judge.
You put it in. I mean, listen. So anyway, it was time for me to do all of that. And whenever it was ready, I had to go back and get the 17-year-old from his room. And my 10-year-old father was like right on my heels, which he sometimes does, usually if they're fighting. And so I'm standing there and I kind of put my head around the teenager. I say, hey, dinner's ready. And I turn back around and my 10-year-old goes, can I give you a hug? I said, yes. And so he gave me a big hug. He said, okay, I'm going to go talk to him. And I was like, you just needed to get you needed to get yourself in that state so that you could be like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go have this conversation. So some kids really have that need for, they have to get into a mental state, and that involves their physical body sometimes of just, I need this so that I can prepare to do this. It can be hard to know, is my kid needing something from me? Is my kid just needing to bounce around? Is this, what's the line of I need to be involved, or I just need to be kind of a bystander and they're there for them? But it's hard. It's hard to figure that out as a parent sometimes.
So I missed most of what you just said. You
So
were cutting.
it's just saying sometimes it's hard to know as a parent, do I need to do something actively right now? Do I just need to be a bystander and be supportive?
Hmm.
But again, I think it comes down to your individual kid, because my two kids need two completely different things all the time. So you got to kind of pay attention to that too, and that takes some level of awareness.
100%. Every kid needs their it. Every kid needs their own thing,
Yeah,
and a parent who is involved, a parent who is engaged, will figure out what button to push and what knob to flick at what time.
yeah,
It doesn't mean that we're going to be 100% accurate. Sometimes we'll push a button when we should have flicked a knob,
yes,
and things go way off circuit.
yeah, yep. Very, very easy to do sometimes. Some days easier than
But the,
others.
but generally, it's like credit. The more credit you build up,
Yeah,
the more benefit of the doubt you get when you need to spend a little bit of it.
yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes one of the things that I encourage parents to do is to let your kids know they're human, that we're
Mm.
human. My oldest right now is going through a real crisis of their own lives because their best friend is moving out of town.
Oh.
And it's their first friend lost due to relocation. Now, you and I as adults have probably experienced this at least once. And it was hard for us. So to think it's going to be easier for this pre-adolescent is folly. So I did listen and I did support, and we did talk, as we have many times, talk about and process on this kid going out of town, things we can do to help. And because it was appropriate last night, when I was sitting with her, I was like, so let me tell you a story about the first time I had a friend move out of town. And it was poignant to the story. It was brief and it made them feel less badly about feeling badly.
Yeah. Yeah, and just being able to connect that way is such a big deal.
It's normalizing.
Yeah.
And this kid doesn't care about most of my stories, but it was a story that was relevant to them in the moment.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My 17-year-old was just talking about every time I tell a new story. He said, sometimes you tell the same story over and over, and I've heard it 1,000 times. But you needed to hear it again right this moment. And then he's like, and then sometimes you come out of the blue, and I'm like, I thought I heard all your stories.
And you know what? Sometimes we hear your stories 1,000 times,
True.
and we listen to them every time.
Yep. Oh yeah, I didn't offer to change anything. I was just like, no, yeah, you're going to hear my stories over and over. That is how that goes. I'm not the only one who tells stories over and over. All right, we've got
It's the
questions left. So, sent this one. She would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
So I would have to say Still I Rise by Maya Angelou.
Oh yeah, yep. That's an excellent
I
one.
think it just, it's about resilience.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a great one. If anyone has not read it, here is a link to go and read it because it is absolutely fantastic. It won't take you a really long time to read. It's not a super long poem, but it's very good, most definitely. Oh, did I lose you? There we go.
I'm back.
Excellent. And the next question is, what is your favorite life hack?
Ooh, favorite life hack. Coffee in the morning.
Yes. Yes.
When I went back to get my master's in social work, I was literally awake 20 to 22 hours a day, every
Oh
day,
my
7 days a
gosh.
week. And I fell in love with this small micro coffee brewery in Round Lake, New York called Death Wish Coffee. And it literally kept me alive through those years.
That's awesome. Death Wish Coffee, #1 organic and #1 fair trade. Let's see if this is the right one. Oh, it's cute. It's got like a skull and bones.
Yep, that's the one.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I'll post it. Not that anything is related to them at all, but if anybody's interested in checking it out, I agree. Like, coffee in the morning is absolutely necessary, and my kids both know that I am a coffee drinker as well. This morning, I had been in meetings and everything, and I stepped out, and my oldest said, "Did you have coffee yet?" I said, "Yes, I had coffee. Of course, I had coffee." It was like 10 o'clock. I was like, "Of course, I've had coffee by now." he goes, okay, great. Can you stay in your office? And I stayed in my office, and they made cinnamon rolls. It was really cute. But he was like, check in. Did you make coffee? Because if you need to make coffee, now's the time. It was very
Yeah,
cute. But yes, coffee is
I need my
critical.
coffee.
Yes, absolutely.
That is my greatest life hack. Everything else fits into place after I've had my first cup of coffee,
Yep.
usually before the children are awake.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. I had already finished my coffee for the day by the time you asked.
I would actually say that is the subset of coffee is having the first cup before kids are awake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one. All right, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. So I have this fancy magic wand. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental illness or disabilities or talking about mental health, what would it be?
I would say that mental health is something to be feared.
Mm,
I think that the more we grow to get to know ourselves, to have the hard conversations, to sit in a room with someone and say, I'm upset about, I'm sad about, I'm scared about, I'm mad about, the happier this world would be in general.
mhm,
I love going to my therapist because I have a lot going on in my world, obviously. And we all think the best part about therapy is that we as a society are so attention starved. There are so many things that are calling for attention that we don't always have the time to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. When you go to therapy, when you go to your counselor, that is 1 hour of your life that the person who you're sitting with is on the edge of their seat, interested in every single word you say. And how cool is that?
mhm,
Yeah, and there are times where I'll go to therapy and we'll be having these really deep struggle sessions where I walk out and I feel like I just went 4 rounds with George Foreman. And there will be other days where maybe things are going kind of good and it'll get, an hour of talking about what's going on with current events, which for this is so important. And I don't want to go down a political rabbit hole, but I am going to introduce the elephant in the room. There's a lot of politics going on, as there
yeah,
will be for the next 5 months. And whatever side you support is the side you support. And if your child supports the other side,
ooh,
it's an opportunity to demean them or insult them or run them down. It's not an opportunity to teach them why they're wrong. Because when I was growing up, I grew up in a household where I supported one side and my family definitely supported the other side. And my memories of that election is while they didn't say I was stupid, they had enough dog whistles towards stupid that that's what I heard.
yeah,
So we're all in our fields this upcoming election,
mhm,
and letting your child explore why they support or don't support someone is so important.
mhm,
And whatever side they go towards, at least they're engaged.
yeah,
You know, being interested in politics doesn't mean that that it's going to work out well. And I'm sorry, as someone who's been I think what was the first presidential election I voted in was, I want to say, 1992, and with very few exceptions, my favorite candidate was one of the two in the larger parties.
Hmm.
So part of teaching your kids to be involved with politics is teaching them to understand that sometimes your side doesn't nominate the right person. And if you have a strong opinion on something, if you have strong emotion on something, then you've got to get out there and participate in the process in order to effectuate the change you're hoping for. Because when I was younger, when I lived in a smaller town, I was a committee member. And only way to affect change is to be inside the room.
Yeah.
Decisions are made by those who show up.
Hmm.
And if you're looking to have decisions made, run for school board, run for, if you're still in high school, run to be part of school council. Get your energy into affecting change.
Yeah.
And as parents, as adults, as guardians, I think the best thing that we can do is encourage our kids to understand all the information so they can form opinions that they believe in, because they're going to be around a whole lot longer than we are. And I want my kids involved in the next generation and helping to effectuate a better planet again for my grandchildren,
Yeah.
because they're my grandchildren, and who deserves it more than our grandchildren?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up politics because I didn't even consider like if your kids are going to vote for someone different or that kind of thing. But it's really important to not to say like you should vote for this person because XYZ, but here's how to determine who you want to vote for. Here's how to look up their record. Here's how to look up what their viewpoints are. Here's how to look up what the options are for a viewpoint. Fact checking is a skill that you should be teaching your kids.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Being able to verify what they say is so important.
Yes, yes. Independently verify some of the shit that comes out of the talking heads. Because, boy, howdy. Yeah,
Oh, so much,
and
yeah.
just the emphasis on like the local elections, that local representation is what really is going to make a difference in your day to day life. Some
Yep.
people just vote every 4 years, and it's like you got to vote. You got to vote every year. You know, go to those elections in May. Go to those. Those matter. So,
And honestly, in going to the primary elections is how you get to impact who's in
yeah,
the election in November.
yep,
Yeah, and put a yard sign in your lawn and say, I believe in John Jones because John Jones advocates for this.
hmm,
And because we are in a situation where we do have a female candidate running for president, one thing that I will encourage is, whether you like her or you don't, I don't care. If you're running down her gender, if you're accusing her of sexual promiscuity, that is being heard by all the people in your life.
yeah,
And if you have a daughter and you are teaching, or a son, and you're teaching them that gender has value,
yep,
that one gender is more valuable than another gender, is really going to impact how they see themselves when they look in the mirror growing up.
yep,
So let that, if you don't like the female candidate for president because you don't agree with her policy on, I don't know, UN dues, Cool. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about you don't believe in her expenditures on NATO uh, dues, or on her opinions on farm subsidies, or
Hmm.
whatever the issue is. But to discount her strictly based on her chromosomes is to teach a really hard lesson to your child.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And
100%.
so I'm let your kid learn that you don't like a candidate because you don't like their policies.
Yeah. Yep.
And
And
maybe they do like their policies, and cool that they
mhm.
like their policies.
Also teach
Just
them how to
let them
find
decide.
what their views on those policies are. Like that's something that they don't teach that in school. They don't necessarily teach
Mhm.
that kind of thing in school. That's a parent's job to do because somebody's got to do it, or your kid is not going to know how to do it for themselves later. So anyway,
Circling all the way back to the beginning of our
yep,
conversation of what are your best hopes? What does better look like?
yeah,
If you
yep,
don't know why you're supporting someone or why you're not supporting someone, how do you know who to support?
yeah, yep, absolutely. Well, we went down the rabbit hole, but that is okay because I don't care.
I think we handled it with a lot of tact
Yes,
as well, and
absolutely.
I'm proud of us.
I put two fingers under here for a specific candidate, and you would never know. I mean, everyone knows. Everyone knows. So it's fine. That's a beautiful thing I'll say. If you're in Texas, like me, and you think that your vote doesn't matter because you're in a red state, you're wrong. Please vote.
You're right.
Please vote.
I I live in I live in a city that excuse me, is very blue. And the university that I teach at, that is a 20-minute drive away from my house, is literally the reddest district in all of New York State. So you never know where your vote's going to count.
Yeah.
And so you participate in the process because, like you said, the school board voting is there, and the
Mhm.
county level and the state level, and all those people are so important, in far more important than what the president or the Congress does.
Yeah.
uh, Ultimately, the primary job of the president is to sign legislation. They just say yes or no
Mm.
on the final bill. Their importance really is not that significant in your day-to-day thing. Whether or not you get a parking ticket for parking on Main Street is more relevant to your life, and that's an election that is going to have way less than 80 million people show up.
Yeah. Yep. It is.
And if it's important to you, you get involved, you show up, maybe you run for office, and you do your part to effectuate the change that you most believe in.
Yeah. Yep.
And we model that as parents. We model that as adults. We One of the things that I always encourage all my clients, adults, the whole 9 yards, when you're out in public, always assume that someone's recording you.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone has a video camera in their pocket. If you take the approach that there is a 95% chance I could be on the internet if I'm acting a certain way, it's probably going to turn you into a far nicer person when you're at the coffee shop. And what a great way to model positive behavior to your child.
Hmm. And also, it's true. Someone is always recording. It just is true now.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And if you're
Yeah.
not going to be a good model because you want to be a good model, then be a good model because you don't want to be the next person on, trending on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll open it up
Yes,
if
I called it
anyone.
Twitter.
I mean, I still call it Twitter. Also, it's just it was a dumb decision. Anyway, so I'll open up any Q&A for folks who are here in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to pop those in. And I'll just open it up to you and say if there's anything we didn't mention, resources or websites. I will post your socials one more time. But anything you want to talk about, I'll just let you have the floor.
Yeah, I think we actually really got into a whole lot of stuff tonight. Enjoying the conversation. I love working with adults who are looking to better connect with their kids, working to better understand their kids and ways to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And to sit and listen to our whole conversation tonight, to sit and listen to many different approaches to helping kids at all different ages, it's the most important thing that you can bring is a friendly face, a warm smile, a warm embrace. There is actual clinical evidence that when you give someone an elongated, tight hug, it will help to manage difficult moods. So, like an 8-second warm hug, warm embrace will help with escalated emotions. It's a release of what's called oxytocin into the brain. It's the love chemical, and it will help the individual to immediately slow down from an escalated state. And ultimately, that's what we're all here for, hopefully, is to help our kids think more clearly. The more escalated we are, the less options we see. The more we slow down, the more we can be present.
Mm-hmm.
The more options we see, the more clear we can be in our decision making, and the better we are at decision making.
Yeah, I love that. I give my kids hugs all the time. Now I'm going to have to count how many seconds they are.
I mean, not every hug has to be not every hug has to be that long, but when they're escalated, you will. And like
Yeah.
one another quick little tip, and this is one of those little micro things. Um, you'll notice when you're talking with your kids and they're having you're having an emotional conversation, they're processing through something really big, and they're thinking and they kind of go quiet for a minute, and then all of a sudden you get that's a good thing. That is the peak and release of a large emotion. That
Okay.
is, the brain has processed through something hard, and the brain is moving on to the next thing and is more open to new information.
Interesting. Okay. I'll have to look for that one.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. It's one of those things where when you see it, just look at their face. You can actually see things get just the slightest bit lighter at that moment.
Yeah. That's neat. So much for joining us here tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been a great conversation. And just thanks for hopping on here despite the technical difficulties.
It's been fun in spite of the technical difficulties. I can't wait to hear how it sounds on the other side.
It'll be great. I'll get it all together. It'll be wonderful. And, you'll still be able to tell there were some issues, but it's a good conversation. That's what really matters, is whether the conversation was good. So
Absolutely. I'm so excited to hear it, and it's been interesting. I hope I can be helpful, and anyone who has questions, I'm only licensed in New York State, but if you do reach out to me and you have questions, I'm more than happy to talk with anyone in any state or across the world as far as ways to help connect with your kids or connect better with your kids.
I love that. And if you're looking to connect, I did put all of those links down in the chat. So LinkedIn, Instagram, website, Facebook, Twitter, all of them, they're all down there. So feel free to connect. And that's how you can get in touch right there, is through those links. Thank you again. I just really appreciate it. This was fun. And chat, give me just a minute. I'm going to disconnect with Wayne and I will be right back. So stick around. Oh, and the camera's not working. Listen, it's the way it's the way this goes. There it is. Hello. Okay, I would stick around and play a game. However, I got shit to do. I have not finished this podcast episode for tomorrow. I'm totally on top of it. I almost finished it, but yesterday I was so frustrated that in the middle of recording, I turned to Tyrion and said, "I'm struggling." He gently headbutted me and told me it was going to be okay. But I didn't finish, so I need to finish that. So I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you have a wonderful start to your week. I will be back on Wednesday. I told Frost I might play some Don't Scream. Apparently there's a new map. So see you then for that. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Monday, a good Tuesday, and I will see you on Wednesday. Thanks for hanging in there through all of that hot mess of my technical difficulties. All right, I'll talk to you later.